Hey everyone, welcome back to your favorite go-to-market podcast. I'm your host, Ross Rich, and today we have a special guest. We have Mike Murchison, CEO and founder of Ada, also a local Torontonian, and we're going to do things a bit differently today. I know we usually have, revenue leaders, ops, enablement folks, but we're going to get the CEO, founder perspective on, interesting. Obviously, everyone's been talking about AI these days, but less so about how do you guide your prospects and customers through that kind of crawl, walk, run. They're being asked by the board, asked by their boss to buy this AI thing, figure out ways to make it work. And I think Mike's team at Ada have done an amazing job of being a very kind of value-based consultative approach to that. So we're gonna dig into that today. And Mike, thanks so much for taking the time.
Great to be here, Ross.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into the details, would love to have you share with the audience a bit about yourself, how you ended up starting Ada, and where you guys are today.
Sure. So Ada is an AI native customer experience company. Our mission is to make customer service extraordinary for everyone. And our view is that essentially the quality of customer service that we all experience around the world, billions of us, is abysmally low. The average North American will spend about 43 days of their life waiting on hold. And
that's an epic stat. That's a great stat.
Shocking waste of productivity. And our view is that AI is going to forever transform the quality of customer experience that we can expect from businesses globally. Today, we just announced this the other week, Ada has now powered more than 5.5 billion customer service interactions for many hundreds of enterprise brands globally, something like 75 different languages. Those are all purely autonomous AI-powered interactions, now across all channels. So we power AI agents in the phone, over SMS, over live chat, over email now. And our objective is to forever elevate the quality of customer experience that you're able to offer. And our view is that AI is going to unlock a new bar. And so we're very excited to be 9 years into this journey, having learned a lot about how to sell AI, how to operationalize it inside the enterprise. And we're seeing more demand than ever before now that AI is sort of on every board's mind.
Totally. Well, I hope you work with more of the brands and companies that I work with, because I still find myself on hold or in these email loops or whatever it is, frustrating chat channels. So here's to Ada continuing to do that. Shout out Air Canada. You guys should maybe work with them.
A lot of work ahead. I think what's exciting is that AI is on everyone's mind, like we said. I know that's true for your customer base too. So I do think that over the next couple of years, the average experience that we all have will be significantly better than it is today.
Totally. Well, the conversation today is going to be very meta, because we're going to be talking about how to talk about AI and go through these enterprise level kind of transformations, right? Like, we're hearing from our customer base, from our prospects. I'm hearing it from our board. What's the future here? This is amazing new infrastructure technology that you can be elevating, like you said, whether it's support the customer journey, internally building your own products, all of these amazing use cases. Where do you start if you didn't start 9 years ago as an AI native company? So I'm curious how you're working with your customers and prospects to help them understand that and kind of see around the corners and not make the mistakes you've probably seen folks make over the last nearly a decade.
Yeah, I think for us, it starts with not thinking about AI at all. It starts with truly understanding the problem that we're trying to solve and how that problem is solved manually today. For us to do that, the origins of our company, while we're an applied AI business, we have very manual roots. We started in the customer service departments as agents ourselves. That was the first year of Ada. We manually responded to thousands of customer service inquiries as agents for 7 different companies that hired us. And we learned just how painful, how costly, how poor the experience is at scale with the conventional approach. So I think much in the same way that you help your customers focus on value-based selling, there's, in this AI hype cycle right now, there's a premium on focusing on value. And I think that actually starts with forgetting AI entirely. There's a lot of AI that's purchased today that is very low quality revenue because people don't know why they're buying the software and they don't know what problem it's solving.
Yeah.
And I think that the best sellers understand that, And they actually think of AI as a dirty word when they initially communicate with their prospect and guide them through the buying process.
Very interesting. So how do you think about with your team, your sales leadership, sellers, CSMs out there that are on the front lines, how do you arm them to have those conversations? So let's say, this great logo company comes inbound, they've heard great things, they've done some research, they're asked by their boss to figure out, this AI strategy for 2025, they feel a bit behind maybe from last year. How do you help them have that conversation to, yes, we still want to work with you, we want your money, but we want to help you orient around an impactful problem to solve to be, successful with them 2, 3, 5 years down the line?
I think for us, it starts with our conviction that we are a business partner to our buyers or to our customers. And to be a business partner, it means that you have to understand your customer's business at least as well as they understand it. Ideally, even more. And by the way, the opportunity for AI to equip sellers with way more empathy and understanding of a prospect's business has never been greater. It's changing by the day. And there's a huge arbitrage opportunity right now for the sellers who properly leverage AI to show up on that initial discovery call, actually equipping the potential buyer, the prospect on the other side, with new information about their own business. And I think that's where it starts. Like, it starts with a deep level of understanding about who you're selling to, what the macro picture that business is operating in, before you even get to the problems. That's how we think about it. Our view is that Ada is going to be your number one customer-facing employee. That's our objective when we work with a company. We take you there over multiple years. But that starts with understanding the customer's business really well before you even think about AI, before you even think about customer experience. And I think once you've got that, then you can sort of contextualize for the person you're selling to, like, what would be the impact on their career if they were to solve one of the problems within this sort of macro picture. And I think, as you and I have talked about in the past, I think the best software gets people promoted. And the earliest you understand what the career path of your buyer is and how you can accelerate it, the better.
Totally. Well, let's pause in step one, because I think this is so important, understanding your customer. How do you, and it probably feels innate to you, I think for the top folks, that's just the way they operate. How do you build a culture of that? How do you kind of, instill that mindset that Mike has and how I approach every conversation is I'm going to take this care and I value their time to a scaling team, right? Because that's the challenge of, operationalizing and build a culture at a company is how do you take what's in your mind and your leadership's, best practices to everyone? How do you orient your team around that? What are some of the things that you've done in the past that you feel like has really kind of underscored the importance of that?
Well, I think we've tried to do that in a couple of ways. So one is we first try to create this sort of archetypal example of what it means to really understand your customer. And for us at Ada, that usually means that after the first call, the prospect is sharing something that they're just effusively optimistic and excited about the next step. And they share things like, wow, I'm so impressed that you've shown up so prepared to this call. I actually didn't know some of these things about my business. So thank you for providing context on what my CEO shared at the earnings call, about, where our strategic direction is. It's like very illuminating to understand how your business can help actually is aligned to our strategic direction as a company. I've very rarely spoken to a seller who actually took the effort to understand what our company's mission is. It feels like you were in our company's town hall last week. Those are the kind of things. So it starts with like, anchoring on and celebrating the archetypal example. And then the next phase is, how do you operationalize that? And that's a sales enablement problem. On the sales enablement side, it's never been easier to operationalize that given AI tooling. So that's actually the easy part. I think the harder part is creating the culture of deep empathy and the examples of excellence.
Yeah, it's funny when you mention that and those quotes from prospects and customers that you hear from, because I think because you're saying there's so many great tools out there, people assume that everyone's using them. And it's just not the case, right? Like, I think that's one of the advantages as a high growth startup and not a legacy company, that you can build that culture and you can really stand out. I think people are still, your inbox is still so full, LinkedIn messages, all this stuff. Yes, but it's all terrible, and it's actually very easy to stand out if you take that extra effort And I think that's something that, we're very passionate about. How do you kind of elevate those touches? Because the average is not great out there. So it sounds like you guys have been able to elevate and really create that, memorable moment with a bit of extra effort.
Yeah, and I think to build on that, part of what helps you stand out is not only understanding your customer super deeply, understand their business better than they do, but it also helps tremendously to understand their fears. And if you're selling an AI native solution today, there are a number of very pronounced and consistent fears that buyers are experiencing right now. So there's 1.5 million emergent AI native companies. AI is a top-down, often board-driven mandate, certainly CEO-driven mandate. So there's deep pressure. There's an existential, concern around what AI's application means for my job and who I am as a person, even at a more foundational level. And so your ability as a seller, I think, to show up and reflect that those problems are real and that you have experience helping others navigate through those, I think is a real credibility building exercise that sellers should take the effort to understand and practice.
Yeah, I think even naming that, right, saying, hey, I know we're working with folks and this is how they're seeing it and feeling it, and pressure to get it right away because everyone feels behind. That's who you want to partner with. Like you're saying, you want to be a true business partner with. So let's say we've nailed that first or second call. They've reached out, we had the opportunity, or we reached out to them, had the opportunity to, show them that we understand, that we know them. How do you help guide them through that process, right? How do you help them understand where the best fit opportunities are, and kind of be that internal consultant to get them to success?
We think about a couple things at Ada. So we think about, certainly expressing, like we said, deep empathy for the company mission. 2, clearly explaining how Ada is going to accelerate their progress against their mission. And then 3 is give them a map to get there. And the map, I think, is where a lot of sellers and a lot of its general go-to-markets really break down. It's also where Accord plays a key role in helping people succeed. The map is so key. And I think the extent to which you can explain how whatever you're selling, for us, it's over a 3-year period typically. We are going to systematically take you from X to Y, and how it, each stage, here, there's a clear incremental gains for your business, that are extremely valuable. That to me is like the most essential thing. And what I've learned over the years is that the speed at which you can go through those milestones that you articulate over that 3-year plan or map is the way that you add velocity to your sales cycle, in like a less obvious way than I originally thought. It turns out, if you can get to milestone 1 incredibly quickly, you earn so much trust in the eyes of your buyer. They start to believe, okay, wait, milestone 2 is actually real. Milestone 3 is really real. I'm going to refer my friends to work with, Ada. And so I think it's, on one hand, that's sort of an obvious statement, like you put out what you're going to, you do what you say you're going to do. But I do think that there's a cultural tendency in many organizations to think of implementation as an afterthought. It's a separate team. It's post-sales that consider, that does this. It's not the seller's job. I think that the certainly in the AI world, there is so much less of a difference between pre and post sales than ever has been before, and there's therefore a premium on giving your buyer a map and actually delivering against it.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point, and I think because the risk, what we were just talking about in terms of the risk level being so high and so much pressure, I think now more than ever, folks are looking to be guided and led. Mm-hmm. And I think there's that opportunity to be that very prescriptive challenger seller a lot more than, hey, I've bought this type of thing before, right? I've bought the CRM, I bought this type of, but when it's new, the risk is so much higher and everyone sounds the same. Everything, all the marketing material of these companies that are raising hundreds of millions, everything looks great. You want to work with someone who, like you said, shows that they know their business, but also the path to get there. And I feel like a lot of times you get so excited about talking in theory behind things versus, hey, these are the people we want to discuss with. These are the team I'm going to bring along from my side. This is exactly what we're going to do step by step, that I think sometimes people can be afraid to bring the whole journey to, but that's actually what the customer, what I found in my experience, are looking for in those high risk buying decisions.
Yeah, and it's such a career growth opportunity for many sellers too, right? I mean, I think it's so true that right now, prospects want to be told how to get to the promised land. And that's a hard thing for often more junior sellers to communicate, right? Their tendency is to be an order taker, to be more open-ended, to be flexible.
You tell me.
You want to get there. You tell me. And that's like, you tell me is like the worst mentality in selling AI native software. I just think it's like you're dead in the water if that's your approach, because your job is to be the expert. Your job is to take the customer there. I think that's so true. And there's a fine line between, I think, being prescriptive and then also being transparent and open around what we know and what we don't know. And in the AI world, the reality is that things are changing so quickly that the playbook is probably going to change. And so there's also a component of setting expectations that, I'm going to guide you through what we know works today. But I'm also going to be completely open and transparent with you that this may evolve, probably will evolve. And I'll also communicate that to you. Because again, I'm aligned to your business and I'm aligned to what your company's mission is.
And maybe getting tactical, have you found the level of the stakeholder on your customers and prospects like higher up because it's such an executive level initiative? And how are you getting your team comfortable? Because again, going back to like traditional sales, maybe you weren't talking to the CEO, maybe it wasn't a board level initiative to sell a 500K deal before, but now it is. So I'm curious to hear how you guys orient around this kind of more executive level buying decision.
So we absolutely see far more senior stakeholders in our cycles than we did 2 years ago. That it's not unusual actually for us to be selling a Fortune 1000 company and for a C-suite, member of the C-suite to enter the very early stages of our sales cycle. I was on a call earlier this week where like the CEO joined the discovery call.
Wow.
Which would have never happened. And why is that? Well, it's because board level.
And that's at a company you've been at for 9 years, and you're saying it's changed just a few quarters ago. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so how are we're very excited about that. Because it means that it's so much easier to understand the company's mandate and for you to empathize with the customer, with the business you're selling to, if you're speaking to the person who's dictating the entire strategy and the entire company and the company culture. So that's very exciting to us. It does change our approach. There's in a few ways. One, we have way more operational rigor around our EBRs, way more. Two, we are far more likely to do on-sites with our customers than we used to. And three, we invest a lot more in our services and our forward deployed engineering organization. And I think there'll probably be other things that evolve too. But it is pretty interesting how as AI advances, as we have customers who are now autonomously resolving literally 85% of all customer interactions, there's a premium on the human component.
Yeah, that's
in the selling process.
The irony of it is definitely not lost, especially with what we sell is working with folks that are focused up market and have high touch processes. It seems like that dimension is more important than ever. And one interesting assumption I have around sales is actually top performers using some of these tools and selling these tools are far more valuable, because before it was kind of like SaaS technology can move the middle more. And I think with these more complex tools, I actually think it's like more of a gap from the top folks than the average. The folks that can figure out how to maybe you get to work on one or two more enterprise deals because you are, like you said, getting to know the customer better from instead of reading the transcripts or listening to the YouTube videos of earning reports that I've done hundreds of times. You can summarize that and actually probably better summary and pulling out certain themes and maybe across the last 4, how has it changed over the last 2 years for the CEO, for this board? So I do see the bar for sellers being higher, selling into the C-suite, but then also the effectiveness of your top performers. I think you need fewer but higher quality people, and then kind of doing what you're doing, which is you get to, AI, the rest of the stuff, the type 1, type 2 challenges, and then the more complex stuff, you need a top performing person there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a higher ceiling for sellers. And I suspect performance will bifurcate, like you're alluding to. Like folks either, will be able to leverage AI in their selling process or won't. And if they won't, I mean, it'll be a pretty low floor, I think, of performance. I do think also that most AI native businesses have different pricing than traditional SaaS. So these are consumption-based businesses, which often translates into just ridiculous upside for the seller. We're going to see, I think, actually a new standard of NDR in this current cohort of AI native businesses that just sellers haven't seen historically. And so there's going to be a lot of, I think, a reevaluation of what it means to be, what the standard enterprise quota is actually. We'll see that'll be substantially bigger, I think, in the next few years.
Well, sellers, make sure your comp plan's aligned to NDR instead of just the upfront contract. So
definitely. I think
you get the value from the customers you're building with. Yeah.
Yes, so long as you're the one who's staying with the customer and helping them execute on their map.
Exactly. Well, maybe last question. Gonna more broadly, if you are, if one of the executives out there listening, thinking about how to approach the right approach to having these conversations with potential vendors, bringing in AI, what would your recommendation be, and like the right kind of framework to think about the crawl stage, right? Hey, I want to hit the ground 2025. We've tested out a couple things, but we really want to, dive in this year. What would you recommend to folks thinking about how to kind of lead from the front there?
I think the most important thing to understand when you're buying AI native software is that the right software you buy, the right team you partner with, will help you recognize that its value that it provides to you will be dramatically greater at month 6, at year 1, at year 1.5, than it provides you on day 1. And so your evaluation process it needs to be reconsidered. Like traditional SaaS, when it's purchased, the procurement process is how well does this solve the problem we have today? But the reality is that AI native software, the good software, is really more like hiring a new member to your team. And when you hire a new member to your team, you don't evaluate them on the first day of the job. You evaluate them post ramp. And the cool thing about AI is that will continue to ramp. It won't plateau.
Yeah.
And so I think understanding that in what you're buying and how you evaluate its effectiveness. Don't ground your decision on the value on day 1. Ground it on multiple milestones beyond that. That'll help you make the right decision around who best to partner with, I think. And I think a lot of folks are pretty similar across all these different verticals that AI is being applied to. If you just evaluate the day 1 performance, and they start to look pretty different if you evaluate day 180, day 360, day whatever.
Totally. I love that simple framework of thinking about it more like a person you're adding to the team than traditional technology, because you have to take into account, not just the development of the tool in context to your business over a year, but the development of the technology itself over time is accelerating so quickly that you need to think about who's going to stay on the cutting edge, who's proven that, and who might be more of a flash in the pan, like we've seen with some companies. So
that's a great initial point. The right partner will keep you ahead.
Yeah, totally. Well, this was a lot of fun, Mike. Getting your take on how to think about this stuff, new to so many, and you've been at it for a few years now. So appreciate you taking the time.